Go. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer, and this will be a friendly chatter with my good friend Darren Williams. Sometimes he just sends me a lot of Facebook messages and emails with things he'd like to talk about. And so that they don't get too far away from us, we decided just to have kind of a casual conversation that we will record for all of you guys today. And Darren has a few things he wants to talk about with me. So, Darren, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for having me once again.
You're welcome.
For all the people that regularly listen to our conversations, one of the things that we have been teasing for about 4 months is a joint conversation around our experiences in the electronic dance community, spanning from the mid-90s to now. It was going to be a compare and contrast because where I'm from, which you can hear from the accent, Liverpool, United Kingdom, had perhaps the leading nightclub of this genre known as Cream. And this then became a massive dance conglomerate that held events in South America, as well as Australia, Asia, and the United States. So I've always been fascinated as somebody that has enjoyed dance music culture here in the UK to always speak to somebody who is American, who has experienced the same things as dance music in America, from my knowledge and reading, was not as culturally big as what it was in the UK, but it was more of an underground movement. So whereas my experiences in dance culture could be deemed as corporate, Emily's could be deemed as more underground. So we will talk about that. And one of the aims of the conversation that we were planning today was going to be around Daft Punk's announcement that they had finished within music and how that affected me, and if that affected Emily, and anything that we could talk about Daft Punk, as they are a very interesting duo in terms of symbology and what they represent, most notably transhumanism. But something came along, and what came along was something known as Oprah with Meghan and Harry. So one of the things we're going to talk about is how this Anglo-American event has been documented in the United Kingdom, where I am, and Emily is in the belly of the beast in Los Angeles, California. And we will talk about all of that type of thing. So I hope you enjoy it. Some of the things I find are very interesting, and it's meant to make you think. So thank you.
So yes, so we will be talking about the dance music in the patron section. We will be talking about the Meghan and Harry debacle here in the first segment. So, all right, I don't know. I mean, I've been hearing all this stuff about it, right? But like, so my intuitive powers have been able to, pick things up and whatnot. But make your case. Tell me what's going on. Lay it out for me, and then we'll see what I think.
Well, what is very interesting that immediately got my attention with this whole pop culture event, possibly the biggest one of the year, is the date it was revealed or broadcast here in the United Kingdom, and that being International Women's Day, the 8th of March. So this is, I believe, a very deliberate timing created by Oprah Winfrey and likely Meghan, because both of them claim to be feminists, whatever feminist means, because feminist to one woman is something directly different to another.
Yeah.
But this is what these two women proclaim to be major advocates of. So what I like to do is I like to look at things in a country basic manner. And I learned this from the deceased alternative researcher, American civil rights activist, and pop culture icon, Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory is basically the inspiration for both Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, for those of you that don't know his work. And Dick Gregory said that what we like to do as a culture and society, we like to look at the more high notions of things, and we forget about the basic levels of it, the foundation, because that could be seen as bland or boring or mundane. But a lot of the basic things reveal what the actual delivery or the notion or the modus operandi of what that actual thing may be. So what I looked at was the actual title. Now the title is called Oprah with Meghan and Harry. So Oprah is in first place, Meghan is in second, Harry is in third. So that made me think about the power structure between the three. And is Oprah now the surrogate replacement for the Queen in terms of the relationship that Meghan and Harry need, an older matriarch, so to speak? So that shows you what Oprah views herself as, which is very interesting to look at. The other thing is that Harry, within the interview, is almost irrelevant. He comes in at the last quarter. So for the 3/4 of the interview, it's all Meghan and Oprah. So Harry now is nothing but an accessory, when if it weren't for him, Meghan would have absolutely no importance.
Right.
So what this now comes into is modern man and how dynamics between men and women are changing. And some men don't like this, and some men do like it. And it's very interesting where we are in the ebb and the flow of dynamics with relationships. And some people would say that Harry looks at Meghan as an equal, because basically women and men both have brains. And basically it's about intelligence, how knowledgeable, how sophisticated, how logical, how improvisational an individual can be, and they can bring all of these things together, and then they have intelligence. So some men can accept that and can accept a woman being more intelligent than them, because a woman can be more intelligent than a man, just to let everyone know. So because of this, there is resistance in some men. So there is this thing of, how do I, as a man, this is me speaking personally, act in this new age? And I felt very uncomfortable when the Harvey Weinstein revelations came out. And I instantly knew that was a red line in Western Anglo-American culture, how men will relate to women. So we've gone into this weird zone where in some ways it's very sex plus sex promotion. There's internet pornography. People are very open in some ways about their expressions, but in other ways we become like neo-Victorian, where we're now very hesitant about trying to pursue romantic endeavors because we don't want that person to think we're a slime ball. So we're in this very confusing age at the moment, and Harry is the perfect summary of that, where what he's done, because maybe he does not want to impose them old stereotypes of what men wear, he has now allowed his wife now to treat him like an accessory, which then goes against his own advocacy as a human, because before gender, we're all human, and we should not allow another individual to dominate us, because that then means that we are demeaning our own self and worth. So this is where Harry is stuck in terms of where he is in terms of all of this. And because now he has a wife that is very media savvy, very ambitious, he's getting used. And for some people that might say, well, how is he getting used? Well, one of the things that was not mentioned in the interview very deliberately was a royal premiere gala of the remake of The Lion King that was attended by Harry and Meghan. and they were in line, and they were talking to Beyonce and the other Hollywood celebrities that were part of it, including the director. And then Meghan went on to the next group in line, everyone was single file. Harry then goes to Bob Iger, who is the then CEO of Disney, and then basically tries to be Meghan's agent, celebrity agent, by saying, Bob, my wife really likes your animated films. Would it be possible in the future if she could give a voice to one of the characters in the future production? So Bob Iger is with his wife, and he's looking at his wife to say, is he trying to pitch something to me in public, in a gala, on camera? Like, what am I supposed to say? No, sorry. So Bob Iger's like, well, yeah, maybe, let's talk about it later. And he's just looking at his wife as if to say, this is a minefield, because his wife at the time was living in Britain, and you've got to deal with that royal institution. You've got to deal with the politics of monarchy and what is the film about. So then you've got to give the plot and everything to the palace. You've got to give it to the British government. And now you're worried about leaks because you've got this intellectual property and you don't want it now leaking to other people, your competitors. So all that work could be spoiled. So Bob Iger's thinking all of these things in his head. You can see it visibly. But what the British media didn't do, they didn't the next day call her the lying queen. And they could have gone on a total, like, I don't know, mudraking thing of making her look thirsty and celebrity hungry and wanting fame and all of these things as she's an actress. But they didn't, they suppressed it. So that shows that there's some agreement between the media and the palace. But when they then said, right, we're leaving for sunny California, bye-bye, adios, then they released the footage. But in the interview that was shown with Oprah and Meghan, that section about the royal premiere was not mentioned. So everything they said about we weren't protected, we didn't have anybody to lie for us or watch our backs or try to represent us, like, that was never mentioned because that actually happened. They were protected. And that proves that, like, both of them are fame obsessed, because you can't be, that is the ultimate, like, fame at the moment, going to the CEO of Disney. You know, Disney is Star Wars, Disney is Avengers, Disney is Pixar, Disney is all types of things. So for you to go to the main person that runs that conglomerate and ask for your wife to possibly have a leading role in an animated production, that shows to me they've got a bit of ambitions beyond, like, just opening community centres in, like, Bradford.
Well, there's one other thing Disney is that you forgot to mention. What else is Disney?
I don't know, mind control, corporate greed.
All that. But Laura said the same thing as you, mind control, but I'm thinking something else. Disney is the Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
Right.
So that's replacing the kingdom they're leaving.
So basically, all right. So I have watched none of this. I have only heard from other people, little bits. I see in my YouTube feed that people are making videos about this. You sent me some stuff. I read the text of your emails this morning. I did click on the Huffington Post article about Piers Morgan being dismissed or leaving his show based on being critical of this and whatnot. So here's my sort of intuitive strike on what's going on here. All right. So I think that Oprah is a much more powerful person than we think, because we think, oh, well, she used to have this show and now she really doesn't. She has this Oprah Winfrey network. Occasionally she does something on it, but she's really just, you know, receded into the sidelines and is just enjoying the spoils of her success and all that kind of stuff. But back in like what I would say were some of my most tumultuous days, like in that period of time where like I was still doing drugs, but I was trying to get my life sort of cleaned up, and I was in the tussle, right? Like when you're fucked up, you're just fucked up, and when you're good, you're good. But when you're in that time where you're struggling between the two is sometimes where the most interesting observations are. And for a while, there was this strange weather going on here where there would be like clouds, and there'd be like this one little area where there was an opening, and this incredible like ray of sunshine would come through and reflect in all these different ways, and it literally looked like the second coming of Christ was going to happen. But I would say the second coming of Christ, or maybe Oprah, right? For some reason in my head, right, like I was like it, I energetically was picking up on like Oprah was like actually, you know, somehow culturally had been ascended into this place of like godlike power. And if you recall, she has brought us people like Barack Obama. She was responsible for Barack Obama. Nobody knew really who, I mean, yes, he had done his speech or whatever at the Democratic convention, but the first time I ever really got a good look at Barack Obama was when he was on her show, right? She has done a lot of things to help rehabilitate the public opinion of Bill and Melinda Gates, right? She would have them on talking about how wonderful it is that they're putting an iPad in every classroom in Africa and stuff like that, right? I mean, she has a lot of power behind the scenes. And my guess would be that what's happening here is that there isn't actually any power struggle going on between Meghan and Harry and the Queen. What's happening is the Queen is old, right? And the Queen is, you know, like there's no way that the West can overthrow like Anglo-Saxon culture without also on a certain level overthrowing the Queen, right? Like at least energetically, right? I don't think there's going to be an actual overthrowing of the monarchy, but if they're going to push this idea of, you know, equity and like, you know, reparations and letting Black people and particularly Black women ascend to power and whatever, like you can't have like the Queen like the same way we used to. And unfortunately for, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but Prince William carries that same energy about him that Prince Charles did or that the Queen does, right? He has that very like creepy old white man who eats babies off to the side energy about him, right? But Harry isn't. Harry is the redheaded orphan, right? Harry's the different guy. He's more sensitive. He's more concerned about issues like climate change and you know, eradicating poverty and feeding the world. And at least that's the public persona that they give him, right? That he is much more of like an egalitarian kind of guy, right? But I think that like whenever we see that, and I've talked about this in the past with like the whole possibility of England and Scotland breaking up, and my thoughts on Andy Murray and who he really is and what he's really doing. I spoke about that in the show with Tracy. I think they're always having like a backup plan. Like, okay, if the world changes this way, how are we going to rebrand our power so that we still have it, right? And so I think one of the things that's going on in this, so I think they're setting Meghan and Harry up to be like the monarchy that's not referred to as such, right? Like a more egalitarian, friendly monarchy, but really it's still a monarchy. And I think that the idea of monarchy is returning to the United States, right? Like I think that like, and I see people who like there's the aspect of it where like people are like, we don't have a democracy. We have an oligarchy or basically a monarchy where there's a few powerful people and they run things as if there's a king, right? Kind of thing. There's that view. And then there's other people who think that have fond memories and they think it would be better if we lived in a monarchy. Like both things are crazy in my opinion or whatever. But you have these two who have fled here, who seem to be on very good terms with Oprah, who is, for all intents and purposes, the Queen of the United States, at least as far as her media, right? She's like the royal Black queen of the world, or of the United States in terms of the way people think of a powerful woman, right?
Well, even if I can just interrupt, the name Oprah
Yeah.
Ra is linked to Egypt,
You got it.
R-A-H. So that is showing royalty.
Oprah.
So
there's so many things you can do. There's so many things you can do with the name Oprah. It sounds like opera. We think of these regal women with their voices dominating the sound of the palais or whatever, you know, whatever it is. There's so many things you can do with that. But she is the main channel, like power broker of who's going to be in charge in the United States, right? In a lot of ways, like, you know, she bridges that gap between like politics, society, and celebrity on a certain level, right? And so, and women like her, right? Like housewives like her. She feels like in every woman in a lot of ways, and you know, she doesn't have this, even though she's like obviously one of the wealthiest people in the world, the struggles that she has had with her body and her weight and all of this kind of stuff, like gives this false impression to everybody that she's just like them, right? So you have Harry and Meghan, who are very in with celebrity do-gooder culture, like all the celebrities that are like worried about climate change and stuff like that, right? Those are all their friends. And now they're able to do this thing, like they're able to do the woke stuff, right? The woke stuff has been going on with them for a couple of years now, right? But so that, and then they're also big in with, like you mentioned in your email to me about, they're in with the tech oligarchs, right? They're kind of in with the tech people here in California who are for like a woke version of censorship kind of thing, right? Like everything must support this idea that there has to be a reckoning for the past imbalances against, you know, people of color and women. And the way that we do that is by artificially ascending those people to places of power, whether it's merited or not, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Now,
so instead of giving money and giving financial independence to Black America, that was promised by Abraham Lincoln in his 40 acres and a mule promise, they would rather do the cheaper option, which is like, right, we'll just make a couple of African-American CEOs, but right, those African-American CEOs do what the owners and the hedge funds tell them to do. So it's not Black empowerment, it's just tokenism.
It's tokenism. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's tokenism, right? And so the other thing that I would point out, so Meghan Markle was an actress, and I would propose that she is playing a role. She's playing a role, right? Of course. So my introduction to Meghan Markle was when she was on the second season of Fringe, right? And she was the person who found, so this is Meghan Markle on Fringe, the second
Interesting.
season, right? And so she was the person who found Olivia after Olivia had been in the car accident that sent her into the other universe for the first time, right? So she went into the other universe to meet with William Bell in the Twin Towers that no longer existed in this reality. So to me, the symbolism of Meghan Markle is she is who you meet when we are in this area where the universes are colliding.
So now you've got my mind blown, as you always do, emilycmoyer, because one of my main beliefs about Meghan Markle is that Meghan Markle is known as a spook, and this could be a military intelligence agent.
So this right here, Darren, this right here, let me see if I can find the picture of her with the FBI jacket on. Yeah. That is who Meghan Markle is.
So the reason why I've come to this conclusion is, for those of you that don't know, after leaving higher education, university or college, Meghan Markle did an internship at the United States Embassy in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Oh, interesting.
Now, for those of you that know the importance of Argentina from about 1930 onwards, that should get you really interested. And all I will say is, you do not work in that location unless you're not allowed to work in that location, because there's a lot of things going on in Buenos Aires. So another thing for you, Emily, is whilst talking to you, I remembered that Oprah Winfrey was in a Disney production in which she led called A Wrinkle in Time. That was released in 2018, which is about a antediluvian culture, which is the culture of Atlantis, meeting the culture now. And the date this was released in America was on the 9th of March.
Okay.
So now we've got a thing of time and International Women's Day with Oprah Winfrey.
So I would do a couple of things here, right? So we have with these two characters, people who show up on the border of ripples of time and space, right? So they're sort of like, I don't know if they're there to initiate people into that or if they're sort of like boundary guards of that, right? Because she was sort of the FBI agent sort of circling the perimeter of New York where this thing was kind of happening, right? And then she got involved in the storyline based around the shapeshifters that were coming in from the other universe. And so we have right? Okay.
Well, the interesting thing about this, Emily, is in the UK, they've never mentioned her appearance in that series. Now, I'm aware of this because you often talk about it. I'll have to watch Fringe because it's a big deal for you. But they always talk about her performance in the TV show Suits, which is about law, but they've never talked about her performance in Fringe.
Yeah, she was in a good number of episodes. It wasn't just like a one-time appearance. It was like at least 3 or 4, but maybe as many as 6 or 8, right? So she was there playing, and she was working with Peter to try and find Olivia, and there all this kind of stuff that was going on to solve certain aspects of the thing. So there's a couple of things, right? So one of the things I've talked about in terms of I've been covering a lot about the 2nd season of OA in relationship to the Elisa Lam case, but also in the 2nd season of OA, one of the very first things when Prairie found herself in another dimension in the body of Nina Azarova, right? Part of how it was made clear to us that we were in a different dimension was that they asked her in the hospital who was president. She said Barack Obama. And then they showed her the TV and Joe Biden was president. Now, this was from a few years ago. This was supposedly years back when, right? So to me, the signal was when Joe Biden is your president, you're in a different world, right? Wow. And so we have Meghan Markle, right, at this barrier point between realities, right? There to usher you into sort of the other realm or to investigate your disappearance into another world, right? So and the fact that she was in Argentina, which we know plays into the Nazi time travel, all that kind of thread of information. So that's very interesting. The other thing that I would like to say is that I think that I don't know exactly what's going on with Joe Biden here, but there's been a lot of stories in the sub alternative media that something crazy was going to happen on March 8th or the 12th, that there's going to be, this week would be like the shifting from when Joe Biden was president to maybe when Kamala Harris is president instead. I don't know that that's going to happen. I think what we're going to be looking at here is more of like rule by committee kind of thing. And I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to start having, we just finished Black Excellence Month, all of February, like Black Excellence Month and all this, but they were not focusing on Black males. They were only really focusing on Black females, right? It was like a never ending story about how excellent all the Black athletes were. And somebody was like, on the 28th of February, somebody was like, I was relieved that Black Excellence Month is over, but my calendar just alerted me that Women's Month was starting, like Women's Appreciation Month. So for fuck's sake, right? But think about this. This is like that perfect transition from Black Excellence Month into Women's Appreciation Month. And then you have March 8th, March 9th, this week. This is very Piscean time. We're in the time of Pisces. It's watery. What's watery? Atlantis. I think we're at this sort of watery, semi-permeable membrane between possible realities, and who's going to be in charge on the other side of that?
Well, for those of you that are sort of questioning this conversation, because you might be friends of mine and I send you the link on WhatsApp or Facebook or Twitter, and you may be saying, what are these two talking about? Well, for the past couple of days, people during daytime have witnessed oil tankers in the English Channel floating above the water. And this has been due to what the mainstream media is claiming is a rare, significant mirage event. Now, my country basic knowledge of science states that mirages can only happen when heat occurs, such as in the summer months of extreme heat. This is why when you walk in 28 degrees Celsius weather or above, if you look 100 meters or plus down the road, you will see the road ripple because of the way the heat is rising from the surface. But this does not happen during the colder months, which February is one of them in the UK. So this is talking to me about reality. There's some strange change going on in reality, and people 11 a.m. to 2 p.m, sunny weather, no cloud overcast, are seeing oil tankers float above the English Channel. So something bizarre is going on. And what I should have stated to you earlier, for those people that aren't aware, A Wrinkle in Time, starring Oprah Winfrey, in which her character is called Mrs. Witch, but Witch is spelled W-H-I-C-H. That was a Disney production.
So that leaves open the idea, which one is it, right? Who is this one or that one? The other thing I want to remark on your comments that Prince Harry's taking a very subservient role to Meghan Markle, like he's bowing kind of to the side there, right? I think that we're going to be seeing a lot of that, right? I think the thing that we're going to be going through for the next little period of time, at least in the projected culture, is this idea that women should be in charge, and preferably Black women should be in charge, right? Like that's going to be pushed pretty hard, that's going to be the great reckoning that will solve all of the problems because they're sensible, right? They know how to care for the children or run a family on limited funds or right? And, so I think that subservient role that you're talking about, like he's perfect for that, right? He has that sort of, redheaded orphan sort of thing about him, right? Like where, he's kind of not taken seriously in the same way, although he's doing all of these things that our culture seems to value, like talking about all of the important issues. So now she'll kind of be moved to the front where he's free to sort of go off and do those things, or at least and play the role of like the supportive husband, right? The supportive husband to her, being the queen of the Magic Kingdom. Maybe it'll be the Magic Queendom now. Maybe they're going to make and this is, she kind of has a lioness kind of look about her. Look at her, right? So maybe we're going to see her as the star of the Lion Queen, and that will be the ultimate, like, Disney atoning for its past, wrongdoings or whatever. It would be that now, it's not going to, you could go a million ways with this.
I think what we have to do, one of my favorite lines in the Bible, even though I'm not religious, I'm sounding like Jules Winfield out of Pulp Fiction when I say this, but basically what it is that there's a line in the Bible in Timothy which talks about the sins of the father will be placed upon the child in the third and fourth generation. And what I mean by that is men have subjected women to terror, let's call it that way, for millennia. And what I have to do as a man personally, and what men have to do, particularly in the Western Anglo-American world, is that we're the ones that are going to have to pay the price.
Yeah.
And maybe in 200, 300 years, things will balance out and be less friction. It's like when you make something that is metal, you have to get the raw material, heat it to an extremely hot temperature, and then allow it to cool, and then it fits its purpose. So maybe where we are in terms of gender dynamics is we're at that very hot stage, and people are going to get burnt. and there's going to be a lot of unhappiness, and there's going to be divorce and war within dynamics between men and women, not even in a romantic sense, in a sense of work colleagues or a sense of neighbours actually living next to each other. There could be all of these things, because I have experienced something, I can't get into it, but last July, someone in my community and me were talking, and they were female, and they said something really forward to me. And I looked at them with a reaction of, well, where did that spite come from? Because what I said didn't deserve that spite and that venom. And then another side of my psychology said, if that person who directed that to me was a man, then me and that person will get at it physically, because men have that relationship with each other where we know there's a line, and if the line gets crossed, then it gets physical, right or wrong. So we're in this strange notion where men have to realize that the reason why all of this is happening, even though it is manipulated, because you talked very interestingly about the planet being a very sophisticated computer, and every 400 years it resets and changes, and maybe vibrations and frequencies impact us as we're part of the planet and we're part of this reality. So maybe this is what's happening. We're being uploaded with new types of information that we don't even know where it's coming from, but the power structure may know where it's coming from, but they can't, but they're manipulating the message. So whilst the message might be to enable us as a species, they're using it to invert us as a species.
So two things. First of all, Laura and I were having this conversation this morning, right, about this idea of oneness, right? Like, it's entirely possible that part of the cycle that we're going through naturally is that there's going to be a deeper sense of like being being a community, or being oneness, or like, in order to come into whatever, to survive or to outlast whatever reset we're going through, the sense of sort of community and coming into resonance with that which is true, or the vibration of this shift, like it's a natural sense of community or oneness. And what you're talking about, right? The elite, or the people who would like us to believe that they are our controllers, they know that this is happening naturally, and they're trying to distort it by creating more of like a hive mind consciousness, or a homogenized, view of the world kind of thing, right? Where everybody can look differently, but they have to have the same opinions and do the same things and eat the same garbage and all, all of that kind of stuff. So it's like a manipulation or a distortion. So absolutely. And then I also wanted to say, something else pops to my mind quickly, and now I just went away. What was I going to say? Oh boy. Oh, while you were talking, something, I had a vision in my mind, and a thought, and the thought in my mind was, I wonder if Harry and Meghan Markle are friends with Serena Williams. So I just typed that in.
Oh yes. Google, oh yes.
Right. And so this is what obviously came up from 2 days ago. Serena Williams and other celebs support Meghan and Harry after Oprah interview, right? And then there's pictures of them all. So here we have Serena, Meghan Markle, and Beyonce. And I would say that this is what you're looking at right here is like the committee of queens that will rule, if not our political realm, but our cultural or societal realm. And when you were speaking earlier, we were talking earlier about tokenism, right? And about like, oh, okay, like rather than truly doing things. Okay, so here we go. We have Serena and Meghan together here, right? Lots of pictures of them at some kind of event where there looks, at some type of event. And then I'm trying to see if Serena was at their wedding. All right, so like I just felt like it has the same vibration of resonance for me, and I was thinking. So we were talking about the tokenism, and instead of really truly doing things that could empower people, right? That there's just going to be a few token Black CEOs appointed. Well, one of the things that happened, like when the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on over the summer, was Alexis O, who is Serena Williams' white husband, right? Who is the one of the owners or founders of Reddit, said that he is going to step down and hire a Black CEO in his place. And I thought that to me was like complete tokenism. What he should really do, in my opinion, okay, I'm not going to say what he should do, but like what would seem more meaningful to me as a true step towards equality and progress would be, okay, like I'm a, white gentleman who's married to, a very famous Black woman. We have a young Black daughter. I want my young Black daughter to, when she's older, I want her to be empowered, right? I want her to be able to do whatever she wants to do, not what I want her to do, whatever. And the way I'm going to like push this energy out into the world is I'm going to begin internships for like young, I wouldn't even necessarily have to put a race on it, but like I'm going to go into the hood and find young kids who are working hard, who want to be good students, who want to learn how to do what I do, right? And I'm going to have a few internships, and I'm going to teach them how to run a company like this. And when one of them has progressed to the level that they're ready to run the company, then I will let them take it over from me.
But he won't do that,
because
if he does that, he has competition. Because the thing is, there's a great song for those of you that want to pause this conversation and go to YouTube, maybe listen to it and then come back. So we're doing a bit of a time travel thing in Action and Process here. And it's by Outkast and it's called Hollywood Divorce.
Right.
And it's about how Hollywood basically excludes Black people or African Americans, but then African Americans with the scraps that they are given make gems. And then once Black America's done with it, then the corporate sector comes and exploits it. But African Americans are like, well, we're done with that now, we're on to the next thing. But it's a very interesting song with very interesting wordplay around how the American entertainment industry and the corporate structure have a relationship with African Americans.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if he wanted to help Black people, all he needs to do is first of all talk to Black people. And then what he then needs to do is find the area of America that has the highest amounts of poverty for Black people, and then enable them people with the wealth via communication and dialogue. That's all he has to do. But you see, that's too much work.
That's what I'm saying is if he decided, like the thing that would feel right to me is he decides to take on this mentorship program where he is going to teach and guide these young people and really teach them how to do this. And that would be a commitment of 5 to 10 years.
Easy.
It's just easier to be like, okay, I'm just going to step aside from my own company, which is another form of bowing, right? Just like Prince Harry stepping aside. In order to support my wife and my daughter, ideologically, I'm going to step down from my own company, right? It's kind of similar to like, I'm going to descend from the throne to let my wife be,
because it's his choice to descend from the throne.
Right. So, but the real meaningful thing I think would be is if he took it upon himself to really mentor, instruct, teach, guide, show the way. Right. But that's not what they do. They never do that. They never want to actually give these people what would be a really meaningful experience. It's like, oh, I want to, I want to look like I'm doing my part. So I'm going to step down and hire a Black CEO. Right.
And what's his wife doing? His wife has won how many Grand Slams?
Right.
She's got to say, I can't go on forever. So why doesn't she open a tennis academy with Nike in Compton?
Right.
And so say what we're
I do think she's involved in some charity that does do tennis in Compton. I do think she is. She does have.
But she should have the world's leading tennis academy in Compton called the Williams Tennis Academy. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And she could go maybe to Martina Navratilova, Billie Jean King, Arantes Sanchez Vicario, all of these brilliant female tennis players, and say, could you come and do seasons? So one season might be Steffi Graf, another season might be Martina Navratilova, and her pupils are getting this like once in a lifetime tennis academy.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, like, what is the point of Serena Williams winning another Grand Slam? It's like,
Right, the longer this goes on, I don't think it's. I literally think her last chance is this year at Wimbledon. If she shows up to Wimbledon in the same good physical condition she was in Australia, this is her last chance, because the girls who are beating her on hard court are not good on grass. So it's her. I think she has to do it at Wimbledon if she's going to do it. But did you ever see that interview where with Serena and Oprah Winfrey, where Serena was giving Oprah Winfrey a pedicure? She was like literally cleaning her feet. Did you ever see this?
No, I've never seen that. No.
Like, to me, it was a complete ritual. Like, Oprah was sitting there, they were talking about like the financial advice that Oprah had once given Serena, and Serena's got her, they're like in the manicure pedicure thing, and Serena's cleaning her feet and doing her toes. And I was like, she was just literally kissing the toe of the queen. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, that has some spiritual significance, because there's a part of the Bible, again, going back to that, in which a woman who is poor meets Jesus as he's going around doing his holy work. And when an individual died back then, they would use these very expensive perfumes, natural oils, to disguise the scent of the rotting flesh. So an individual could have an open casket, pardon me, and their friends and members of the community could go and see them. But it was basically highly expensive to get these herbs and oils together, because they were getting them as far as India.
Yeah.
So when the woman saw Jesus, Jesus was just sitting down, and she poured the oil on his feet and then rubbed them. Yep. And that was the highest compliment that she could give Jesus, to say, I would rather have a closed casket, and I would rather give you the most expensive thing I have.
This goes to my observation earlier that there's something about Oprah that's almost like the second coming of Christ, right?
So what I've just sent you in the chat is a rather interesting surprise that backs what you said. Now, I seen this a couple of years ago in Dublin, in the Republic of Ireland, and I had a view of it meaning something. But when then you said about the earth and the relationship of what it is, that makes excellent sense. So this is artwork in Dublin, Ireland. Emily will put it on the screen.
No, there's no link. I just see text there. So,
oh yeah, well, if you could go and search for that. Sorry, okay, I didn't have time to do a link.
Sphere with Sphere, Dublin Trinity College. All right.
Sphere. So this particular artwork, for the people watching, is in specific places around the world. It's in the Vatican, it's in the City of London, it's in Paris, it's in New York's financial district, and it's also in Dublin Trinity College.
All right, I see. Okay.
So this is, again, for people that might be watching it saying, what are you talking about? The earth is a computer, or the earth is sort of organic. So there you have it.
Yep.
So this particular art, the same, there's slightly different interpretations of it, but it's in different places all over the world, and it has some meaning. So my initial meaning, or my interpretation of it, I should say, is that it is a representation of the hidden power structure that controls the earth. So they are declaring themselves to be the machinery that runs the world. And the reason why it's split is that it's giving the viewer an indication of, we're revealing this to you in the form of art. But then Emily comes along and then tells me, hey, knowledge around the earth actually being an organic machine, and then that then makes me think of it in a completely different way.
If you look at this, the way the sphere is divided, there's an element of one side reflecting the other, and so that goes to as above, so below, right? But it also goes to what the FPV, if I understand it correctly, what the FPV angel people are saying is the things that we're seeing in the sky, so even possibly your floating oil tanker or whatever, are a reflection of that which is going on under the ground. So they explained to me when I was talking to them in a private chat that when we see some of the Elon Musk's things where it looks like the flying blue light in the sky, it looks crazy or whatever. What that actually is the reflection in the sky of a particular kind of particle accelerator, a closed tube, or there's two kinds. There's like a closed tube and an open tube one. One of them, when it's activated, creates the same motion in the sky up above, right? So a lot of the things that we're seeing that they're saying is like mirages or this and that, or even with like the halos and the sundogs and the glories and things in the sky, they're a reflection of a process or something that is happening underground. And this seems to sort of reflect that as well. The other thing I've been seeing in a lot of these similar, I see that this is, but there's a few of these around the world and from different perspectives. The other thing that I'm starting to notice many of around the world and very similar but slightly different are these gigantic spiders. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen these?
Oh yes, I've seen them before. Yeah, the modern art installations.
Yeah, there's one at Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. There's one in Crystal Springs, Arkansas, where the Walmart headquarters are. There's one at some college that has a name kind of like this in Ottawa, Canada. They're all over the place, these giant spiders. And it makes me think of that thread that was in the alternative media years ago about the Hadibov material, about the sort of spider race of beings that sort of control the technology of the planet Earth, right? Kind of stuff like they're the managerial class of the dimension, right? So anywho, yeah, interesting.
The other interesting thing, again, for people that may be new to this type of information, is that the acclaimed BBC journalist Adam Curtis, who was award-winning, done a series of his documentaries around IBM in the 1970s, believing everything was connected. And this was them measuring wind speeds in various areas all over the world, looking at rates of bees collecting pollen, the tides, how they reacted. And it was because they believed there was a single unifying theory or mathematical principle that connects everything. So that then links with your research and what you told me around the planet being some sort of organic AI computer, that every 400 years there is a reset. So that made me think of that Adam Curtis documentary. Now, the reason Curtis talks about that is to show the omnipotence of Silicon Valley and their power on our lives, that they've got so much wealth, even back in the 1970s, that just on a whim, they could say, right, we want to collect wind speeds and then connect that with the rate of how bees collect pollen, because we think that everything's connected on a mathematical formula. So that was what Adam Curtis was trying to talk, which in some ways is true. The AI and the Silicon Valley, now Santa Clara set, they have so much money and power that like governments can't even regulate them.
And with all of this, I refer people back to Philip K. Dick's press conference where he announced that we were living in a computer programmed reality. I think he got it the closest to right of anybody. All right, let's wrap it up for the first segment. Darren and I are going to move over into the patron section and go into some nostalgia and some curiosities about dance music culture. But before we go, Darren, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter. You can send me messages, theories, whatever it is. But if it's any of that Julian Assange business, I'm deleting it straight away, because I do not agree with solitary confinement. Me and solitary confinement don't do enough. I've had enough with the lockdowns here relating to COVID, but I'm not doing solitary confinement in the who's go. I'm not doing that, mate. So if you want to send me nice little things, I'll accept it. So my Twitter is Daz Alferi. That is fairy as in science, not in Tinkerbell. And what Emily is going to do is Emily's going to say it the correct way, because I can't.
Daz Alt Theory. The link will be in the description box. And for those of you who enjoy the banter between us, stay tuned, because sometime in the near future, we will be launching sort of a happy hour or speak easy themed conversational monthly. So we will look forward to that, and we will see you guys on the other side. Patreon.com/offplanetmedia or emilycmoyer.locals.com. See you on the other side.